Harry, Georgia, and the Smith and Hart families.
What really happened to Davey Boy Smith? For millions of fans, he was a hero. He was strong. He was proud. He waved the flag of Britain and made a whole country believe in him. Kids wanted to be him. Grown men admired him. He looked unstoppable, like nothing in the world could ever slow him down. But behind that image was a much darker story. It is a story of injury, addiction, family war, and a body that broke down long before his life did. This is not just a tribute. This is the real story of how one of Britain's biggest wrestling stars hit rock bottom. Davey Boy Smith became one of wrestling's biggest international stars in the 1980s and 1990s. As one half of the British Bulldogs, he was already a star before he ever wrestled alone. And if stories like this are why you watch wrestling history, use the hype feature and give this video some hype, because Davey Boy's story only gets darker from here. He was truly known for his incredible strength. He looked like he was carved from stone. Fans loved his power and his speed. Very few big men could move the way he moved. He could lift other wrestlers with ease and throw them across the ring like they weighed nothing at all. Crowds would gasp every time he picked up a much bigger opponent and slammed him down without any effort at all. That combination of size and speed was rare, and it made him stand out on cards filled with talented performers. As one half of the British Bulldogs, Smith helped bring a new kind of wrestling to fans around the world. The team was fast, athletic, and exciting to watch. Together, they became one of the most respected tag teams in the business. Fans in different countries who had never seen each other's wrestling style suddenly had something in common, because the British Bulldogs were must-see TV wherever they went. When the team eventually split, Smith moved on to become a successful singles star on his own, proving he did not need a partner to draw a crowd. To fans, Davey Boy Smith was more than just a wrestler. He was a proud British icon. He represented strength and honor. He carried the Union Jack into the ring like it was a badge he had earned through years of hard work. Parents brought their children to see him. Commentators spoke about him with real respect, not just as a performer, but as someone who represented an entire country every time he stepped through the ropes. Nobody watching him in the ring could guess what was really happening behind the scenes. They only saw the muscles, the flag, and the wins. They did not see the cracks that were already forming underneath. Cracks that would soon grow far too large to hide. The image on television was simple. The truth behind it was not simple at all. His biggest night came on a summer evening in London. At SummerSlam 1992, Davey Boy Smith stepped into Wembley Stadium and defeated Bret Hart. It was the peak of his career. It was the moment that made him a legend in his own country. Thousands of fans cheered as their hometown hero stood tall with a gold in his hands, in the city where he had once been just another young man chasing a dream. For one night, everything about Davey Boy Smith's career felt perfect. He had beaten one of the best wrestlers in the world, in front of his own people, on the biggest stage he would ever stand on. It should have been the start of something even bigger. It should have opened doors that stayed open for years. Instead, it was the beginning of the end. Just months after that victory, everything changed. In late 1992, Smith's run with the WWF came to a sudden stop. He was linked to shipments of human growth hormone during the company's steroid crackdown. The controversy hit hard, and it hit fast. His momentum, built over years of hard work, stalled almost overnight, right when it should have been carrying him to even bigger main events. This was the first sign that his success was not as solid as it looked from the outside. A man who had just won the biggest match of his life was suddenly facing questions about his choices outside the ring. The timing made it worse. It happened right after his greatest triumph, turning a moment of pride into a moment of doubt, and showing fans for the first time that the hero they cheered for was carrying problems they never saw. What should have been the launch of a long, dominant title reign instead became a story about consequences catching up with him. Smith did not disappear completely. He rebuilt his career in WCW and later returned to WWE. His name still meant something to fans. People still respected his talent and his history in the business, but the clean, simple hero image from before was gone. It had been replaced by something more complicated, something fans could no longer separate from the controversy that had followed him. Behind the wins and the new contracts, questions still followed him. The controversy from 1992 never fully went away. It stayed in the background, a quiet reminder that his rise had not been as smooth as it once seemed. This rebuilding period would not last. A far bigger disaster was waiting for him in WCW, one that would change his life forever. Nobody could have predicted just how serious it would turn out to be, or how permanently it would reshape the rest of his career. In 1998, while wrestling for WCW, Davey Boy Smith suffered one of the most devastating injuries of his career. During a match, he landed on a hidden trap door that had been built into the ring for another wrestler's entrance. It was not part of the plan. It was not something he could have prepared for. In an instant, a piece of equipment meant for someone else's entrance ended up changing the entire direction of his life. The impact severely injured his back. This was not a small injury that would heal in a few weeks. It was serious, and it changed the direction of his entire life. What followed was not just pain. It was a fight to stay alive and stay whole. The man who had once been known for effortless power was suddenly fighting just to survive what had happened to his own body. The injury led to a serious spinal infection deep inside his back. Doctors struggled to control it. Smith spent months in the hospital as his body tried to fight off the damage. At one point, there was real fear that he might never walk again. The man once known for his power was now fighting just to move, lying in a hospital bed instead of standing in the ring where he had spent his whole life. Weeks turned into months, and the strong image fans had always known him by felt further away with every passing day. Many people who watched his career believe he was never physically the same after this injury. The trapdoor did more than hurt his back. It took away the athletic ability that had defined him for years. This was not simply bad luck striking a good man. It also exposed how fragile his body had already become after years of strain and years of choices made to stay on top of a business that never slowed down for anyone. One accident had taken away years of physical progress in a matter of seconds, and there was no simple way to get any of it back. The pain from that injury did not go away when he left the hospital. To manage it, Smith became dependent on prescription painkillers and morphine. What started as medicine to help him heal slowly turned into something he could not control. Day after day, the pills became less about pain and more about need, until the medicine that was supposed to save him became its own kind of danger. It was a quiet slide, the kind that happens gradually rather than all at once, until the addiction was simply part of his everyday life. In his final interview, Smith admitted the truth openly. He said his addiction had spiraled out of control. These were not rumors. These were his own words about his own life. He said he had lost his grip on something that once seemed manageable, and it had taken over almost every part of his daily routine. It takes courage to speak about something so painful in public, and his honesty gave fans a clearer picture of what he had really been living through behind the scenes. To fight back, Smith voluntarily entered rehabilitation more than once. He was trying to get clean. He was trying to take his life back from the addiction that had grown out of a simple back injury. This was the point where the heroic image of Davey Boy Smith broke down behind the scenes. The strongman fans admired in public was fighting a battle in private that had nothing to do with wrestling, a battle that never made it onto television. Each attempt at rehabilitation was a sign of real effort, even if the road back was never easy or guaranteed. While his body and his health were falling apart, his personal life was collapsing too. His marriage to Diana Hart, once a partnership built inside one of wrestling's most famous families, came to an end. The separation was not quiet. It became extremely bitter, playing out in ways that hurt everyone involved, including the children who had grown up watching their father as a champion. During this painful period, Smith was accused of making death threats against members of the Hart family. This was a serious and damaging accusation. Smith consistently denied the claims. He said he had fought them in court, and that he had been successful in doing so. Still, the accusation itself left a mark that was hard to erase, no matter how the legal fight ended. These legal battles and this family conflict did more than hurt his personal life. They damaged his reputation in the wider world, and they damaged his standing in wrestling. A man once celebrated as a proud champion was now known just as much for headlines about lawsuits and family war. The two sides of his story, the champion and the man in crisis, had become impossible to separate in the public eye. Fans who once cheered without hesitation now found themselves torn between the man they remembered and the headlines they kept reading. In 1999, Davey Boy Smith returned to WWE. On paper, it looked like a comeback. In reality, it felt sad rather than triumphant. Years of injuries had already taken their toll on his body, and there was no hiding it once the cameras were on him again. No matter how hard he tried to look like the man he used to be. The man once known for explosive athleticism now struggled with basic mobility. He could not move like the old British Bulldog fans remembered from his prime. He could not perform at the same level that had once made him a headline attraction. Watching him wrestle now meant watching a shadow of what he used to be, a reminder of everything that had been taken from him. Longtime fans who remembered Wembley Stadium in 1992 could see painfully clearly just how much had changed. This final run in WWE did not last long. In 2000, Smith left the company for good. It was not a dramatic exit filled with cheers and tributes. It was part of a quiet decline, the kind that happens when a body simply cannot keep pace with the demands of a sport that shows no mercy to anyone, no matter what that person achieved in the past. On May 18, 2002, while vacationing in British Columbia, Davey Boy Smith suffered a fatal heart attack. He was only 39 years old. A man who had once filled stadiums and carried championship gold was gone in an instant, far from the ring, far from the fans who had once cheered his name, gone before he ever got the chance to fully repair the parts of his life that had fallen apart. News of his death spread quickly through the wrestling world, shocking fans who had grown up watching him at his very best. The autopsy that followed found heart disease and an enlarged heart. These were not small or minor findings. They pointed to years of strain that had built up quietly inside his body, strain that had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with the price of his career. A price that had been building for years without most fans ever knowing. Medical experts noted that his past steroid use and years of painkiller abuse may have contributed to this damage. This was not a single mistake catching up with him. It was the slow result of choices and pressures that had built for years, choices that had started long before that final vacation. Still, no fatal level of drugs was found in his system at the time of his death. A detail that showed his final moments were not the simple endings some might assume. Friends said that Davey Boy Smith had been training for another comeback. They said he had been working to turn his life around, trying once again to fix what years of pain and addiction had broken. That effort came too late to save him, but it showed a man who was still trying, even at the very end, still hoping for one more chance to stand tall again. It is a detail that adds real weight to his story, a final reminder that he never stopped fighting for a better version of himself. Davey Boy Smith's death at 39 was not simply a tragedy that came out of nowhere. It was the final chapter of a story built on injury, addiction, controversy, and family pain, one piece stacking on top of another, until his body could no longer carry the weight of it all, until rock bottom finally became permanent, and there was no more comeback left to chase. Despite this tragic ending, Davey Boy Smith remains one of the greatest British wrestlers of all time. Nothing about his fall erases what he accomplished inside the ring. His talent was real, his impact on the sport was real, and it deserves to be remembered clearly, alongside the truth of how his story ended, because both parts of his story matter. A career this big does not disappear just because the ending was painful. His legendary matches, especially his win over Bret Hart, are still remembered by fans today. That single night in London remains one of the most talked about moments in British wrestling history. A reminder of just how good he could be when everything came together, even for just one unforgettable night that fans still discuss to this day. His success with the British Bulldogs also secured his place in wrestling history. That tag team changed how fans saw British wrestlers on the world stage, proving that talent from home could stand toe-to-toe with the very best in the business, and opening doors for wrestlers who came after him and dreamed of following the same path. His influence reached far beyond his own career. Wrestlers who came after him were shaped by what he built, by the standard he set for athleticism and presence in the ring. Even decades later, his name still carries weight among fans who study the history of the sport and the stars who built it. New generations of British wrestlers still look back at his run as proof that a star from home could conquer the biggest stages in the world. In 2020, WWE finally inducted Davey Boy Smith into the WWE Hall of Fame. It was recognition of a career that was as brilliant as it was heartbreaking. A career that gave fans unforgettable moments while quietly hiding a private struggle that never fully went away until the very end. For many fans, this induction felt like the moment his talent finally received the full respect it always deserved, long after the cheering at Wembley had faded. Davey Boy Smith's story is not just about a fall. It is about a brilliant star whose body, whose choices, and whose life all broke down before his legacy could be fully protected. He reached rock bottom, but his best moments still survive the damage standing today as proof of what he once was at his very best, and as a lasting warning about the true price that fame can quietly demand from even the strongest of men.